Last year, Facebook changed its name to Meta, and Mark Zuckerberg published over an hour-long explainer video of his vision of the metaverse. Soon after, the metaverse search interest on Google skyrocketed. Everyone was curious whether it's really as promising as it sounds. Is it really worth investing? Will we all live and work in the metaverse at some point? Let's start from the basics, because at the moment, even defining the metaverse is quite tricky.
We don't really know what the metaverse will be. Obviously, there was this big announcement from Facebook, and they're going all out. I think they're investing about, in 2021, they put 10 billion into developing the metaverse in 1 year. And I think this is going to be a continuous investment. So we'll see what it becomes. But I think for the time being, what we know is that it's essentially it's a 3D virtual world, right? So, but it has different layers. So you have the visual layer. You could almost think of it as two layers. You have the visual layer, which is your virtual reality 3D immersive environment. There's various platforms that already exist, like although Fortnite is questionable. From my perspective, I wouldn't necessarily call it the metaverse. You have Roblox, you have Decentraland that a lot of people are talking about at the moment, and there's the ownership side of things. So in the metaverse, you can sort of own your data, you own certain assets like your piece of land, you own your avatar, that's yours, right? But from a visual layer, it's very much about this sort of immersive experience. So you can create, and if you think about Instagram, all these sort of social media platforms, they haven't really evolved the last few years. Sure, they've added features, but from an experience standpoint, the visual layer remains the same. I think where the metaverse becomes interesting is that it's going to start challenging people to think more broader. And it's probably the reason why we don't know what it is, because we have a natural, as human beings, we have a natural instinct of recreating what we know in the real world, but in the metaverse. And I think as things evolve, we're going to get more and more creative. It's a great space for creativity and innovation. And then underneath that, you have all the more the currency, the transactional aspects. So that has to do with blockchain and all those sort of what we call ledger technologies, and that sort of gives access to people. So they own essentially they can own virtual goods into that space, and so that opens a whole different sort of world. But I think for me, what's interesting is that and there's a vision about the metaverse, which at the moment, everything is very siloed, right? So you have Decentraland, you have Roblox, you have all these sort of different spaces that we call the metaverse today, but you can't really navigate from one space to another. You can, if you own something in Decentraland, you can't, it's not the same thing as owning something in Roblox. And I think eventually the vision is that you'll be able to sort of navigate from one world to another, and exchange assets and exchange money, NFTs, etc., from one world to another.
You might have heard names like Decentraland or Sandbox. These are some of the metaverse platforms, and at the moment there are more than 160 companies building the metaverse. So how are all these worlds different?
At the core of all of it is communities, right? It's all about creating those communities. I think that the main difference between these communities and say a social media community is that in those communities you kind of you're not relying on somebody else. You're not relying on a platform. You can create your own channels, right? So on Fortnite, like I said before, I sort of question whether this is really the metaverse. It feels more like you're still Web 2 kind of platform. It's very much like it's a game / social network. Roblox is very much sort of like, it's the same. It's the sort of those virtual world where you sort of create communities and play within those virtual world. Decentraland that's the one that a lot of people are talking about. You can create and actually buy your own piece of land and build a virtual store. This is where the likes of Burberry and other fashion and luxury brands have started sort of create their own space. You can advertise on those spaces. So it's much more of I suppose a real estate platform almost. You also have Sandbox, which is also aimed to become this sort of, virtual space where people can hang out and just go and chat to your friends. And then the other one was, I don't know, we talked about Fortnite, Roblox, Decentraland. Yeah, I think those are sort of, they also differ. There's Discord as well, which is very much that's almost like a chat social platform. It's very much about, you create your, I don't know if you've ever downloaded on your phone, but you create your own channel about a specific topic, and then you can invite people to sort of discuss and exchange, etc. So it's very, I guess the main difference, I would say, between what we call today the metaverse and the rest of the digital world, the other social media platform, is that the metaverse is very much user-centric, right? As opposed to maybe social media feels a lot more brand-centric, right? So you have on a social media platform, you pay for your ad, it get displayed and shown to people. In the metaverse or in those platforms, it's much more about the people rather than the brand itself. So you're gonna get called out if you talk about certain things, and brands have to sort of think about this differently in terms of how they approach that space, right? And in terms of really thinking about your audience and who you're targeting and how you're gonna get your message across.